In this movie, we're going to take a look at the activating nodes. And by nodes, I mean the place in the organization of the linking where it diverges and ends up going to a different direction. So this, in essence, is the page by itself represents a point of departure in relationship to how the interface continues. So what makes this its own unique node is that it points to something else, another location. This one does as well. So all of these are essentially where we do the interface to get the linking to turn on these other movie clips. So the way this is organized is if we double click in here, well, first if we click on the first one, you'll see that it's got an instance name, linked MC0. All of these are the same library symbol, and in this particular case, it's an instance of text MC left. Now, I just put the left in here because it was on the left side. It lets me know what symbol to use. If for whatever reason you end up moving your text to the right side, you can safely name this inside the library and it won't have an effect, so you could call it text MC right if that's what you chose to do. Or you may have a different configuration in relationship to how it's set up. You can name it in the library to whatever you want, and you can even make a duplicate of it and give it a different name as you need it. But anyway, the idea here is that these are used over and over again, so they're all set up exactly the same. The only thing that changes is the content inside it. So let's go inside, and by content I mean the text information. So the very first thing in here, we've seen this before. Go to actions in here, that's our stop. So let's move that out of the way. Let's move this out of the way so we can get closer to what we're working with. And then the animation kicks in. There's a stop over here. And when you click on the button, the animation kicks in and it gets us to this frame. And then slowly but surely, a little dot starts to appear that reads like a bullet. And it just fades in, and then it runs into the second stop. And that's where it stops when you click on the button. If you click on the button again, it sends the playhead forward and it slowly fades away. When it gets to the end of the animation, it runs to the first frame. And on this frame in here, it runs into the stop again, so it doesn't continue. So that essentially a play and a play again opens it up and closes the animation. Here on this layer, we have an invisible button, and it's the same way we set up the banner buttons. If we double click in here, you can see it's same old setup, nothing in the first 3 frames and a hit area on the back side. And that's why I'm sure you've figured out why it's showing up as blue, because it's letting us know that there's a button in there and this is the hit area for it. So nothing changes there. And the reason it's locked in the symbol is because I need to get to the text box. So now I can click on the text box, and in here you can see that this is dynamic text, which means we have the ability to change it with code. The instance name of it is text box number 1. So if you were to change this text, the path would be identify the movie clip that it's inside, and within that movie clip you'll see a text box called text box number 1, and we want you to modify its contents. So then we would say text box number 1 period, the word text, equals, then whatever that value is supposed to be in this spot is what we log in. And that's the way it's currently set up. So if we go back to the code, let me bring my code up in here. We're going to go back to the home frame, and we'll go to the frame where all the code is. I'm going to go ahead and pin this so it stays open. So here's what's happening is when the application or the map first loads up, it fills all of the content with different information. And here is link MC with a bracket. This is how we display an array. And whatever, this is inside a loop, and this loops through 12 times. The first go around is loop 0, and so this I turns into a 0. So it's saying whatever you happen to have in this array called link MC0, then take its value, go inside into the text box and change the text so that it equals whatever is inside the array text number 1. So if we go to link MC, here it is, And we see that in the first value 0 is this movie clip right in here. So what this is going to take is that this now becomes the name of this movie clip 0. Then inside movie clip 0, it's going to find text box number 1. We want to modify the existing text in there so that it's equal to what's inside the text1 array. And right underneath here is the text1 array, and we see that that code is being changed to the word New York. And so that's the way that works. And you can see that in the path, first there's the container, which is the movie clip. In this particular case, it's this link MC0. And then there's the text box. Then we modify the text to equal to the variable that's inside text1 array. Down here on the bottom, it's slightly different. You can see that we're moving from a movie clip target text, which is the one that has both the name and the population, 2 text boxes now. But this time it moves into another movie clip, a text movie clip, and this is where the animation of the fade in is. And then we go to text box number 1. It's using the same name as in the link MC movie, and it's being defined with the text and text number 1. Then again, we're still in the same target movie clip. In this case, it would be 0. And it's going now to the second text box inside the animated movie. So it's going into a symbol in here, the animated movie clip. Then it finds text box number 2. Then the text box content is changed to start with the word pop followed by a colon plus the variable that's inside this array, the text12. So what this is doing is combining the abbreviation for population, and it's concatenating the variables in array text2 so that they all merge together. That's the way that's set up. So I know we're not talking about the target just yet, but it's important to know how that works because we're going to use the same technique to manipulate this text. But here we go. We're clicking on in here. The text box got assigned, and now you can see that the text box 1 over here is the same information. So this text box over here, even though it's buried within this movie clip that allows me to fade in and fade out, its name is still text box number 1. This is text box number 2, where you can see the concatenation occurring, pop colon, combining the variable of 8 million plus people in New York. And if I come back over here and I look at my code, here's New York, and here's the 8 million plus people that live there. And it assigns those values, and it takes this value and it adds it to this with the pop for population, and basically displays it that way. So the reason why it's important to understand how the target works is because if we want to animate the text in this one over here, let's say we want to make the text change colors. So I'm going to go ahead and lock everything so I don't accidentally select anything. I'm going to go to the text box over here, and now I'm going to, it has to be a movie clip. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it into a movie clip first because I don't want to take a chance that it doesn't. It is possible to animate text. You don't get all the bells and whistles available, like changing color. And so in order for me to be able to change the color and also to identify it in my path so that I can change the content of the text later, it has to be a movie clip. So I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a symbol myself. Either do F8 or convert to symbol under the drop-down menu, and we're going to make that into a movie clip. It has to be that type of a symbol, and then I'm going to go ahead and call this, for the lack of a better name, I'll just go ahead and call it Subtext. And I'm going to use that name for the instance name, so I'll copy that as well, and I'll go ahead and hit OK. So now I need to give this movie clip that I just created, which is based on the subtext in the library, it has to have an instance name, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in the name subtext, and I'll do an underscore and call it MC for the instance name. And now inside in here, I'm going to go inside the subtext movie clip, and here is where I can create my animation. So this is where I'm going to have it fade in and fade out. So let's go back over here. So first level is the movie clip. Then I've got my movie clip in here that I want to animate. Now I can come back in here, double click in here, and this is going to be the text that I modify. So I actually have two options. I can either animate it in here or I can animate it here in this timeline. In fact, now that I think about it, it might be easier for me to animate it right in here. So while this is selected, I'll go ahead and do an insert. Classic tween is fine. I'm going to give myself an F6 over here and an F6 over here. And now I'm going to go to the middle text and I'm going to select my movie clip and I'm going to modify my tint. And just so that it's obvious, I'm going to go with red. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to get an error. And the reason for the error is because my path no longer works. So let's see this. So nothing's working. The code has got a problem, so none of the code runs. So the error is that I need a path to this symbol that I created, this subtext. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to, that's the name of the subtext. It doesn't have a number assigned to it. So I'm getting the name of what's being animated, and inside there's the text box. So now I'm going to go back to my code and I'll go to my actions here on the first page, and here's where I need the subtext. Now this is what I added to it. I added a new movie clip and I'm pasting that in here. So the movie clip is in between the original movie clip that holds everything together. Now there's another movie clip and inside there's text box number 1. Now I can change it. And it will change now and you'll see the animation with the color. It's very similar to what we were doing over here. And in order for me to be able to animate the text box, the fade in and fade out, I had to wrap it in a movie clip. So that's why it's text box text MC, and over here it's called subtext. Different name change, whatever you want to call it, it's really up to you. Just remember that you're going to need this name in both places. You're going to need it here, the instance name, to access the code, and you're also going to need it over here so that you can name the text box, the subtext movie clip, so that you can get to it. So let's see what this looks like. So remember, this is animating, so it starts let me hide this, and so we can see the animation a little bit better. You can see that it changes to red, then it changes back to black. The bullet is still fading in and fading out. If you don't want to see that and you want to turn it off temporarily, you can go to the icon of the dot, and we're just going to make it into either a guide or a mask. It doesn't matter which one. We're just not going to use the mask. We'll go ahead and hit OK. And now when we run this, we'll click on New York, and you'll see that it changed to red. We'll click on San Diego. You'll see that the red stops in New York, and it shifts over to the red. So that's your option in terms of how you may want to make the modification. So however you want to animate it, if you want to animate it by color, or if you want to use the dot, or if you want to replace the dot to another shape. So if we come back in here, turn on the dot, turn it back into a normal layer, and we're going to go to the dot artwork. Sometimes it's easier to find it by drilling into the artwork. So I'll do it right over here where I can see it. And there's my dot layer, so I'll just drill in there. And I couldn't get to it, so I'll have to find it over here. So dot, it's this one over here. And GRP stands for graphic. So if I double click on this, there's my dot. I'll zoom in here a little bit closer. And I'm just going to change it into a square. So I'll make it more or less the same size. It'll turn into a little red square with a red outline, rather, a black square with a red outline. And if I run it, now you'll see when I click on here, the little red square outlined, the little black square with an outline shows up, and if I click on here, it fades away. So you can change that. You can modify it however you want to set it up. It all works. So now the next thing we'll do is we're going to take a look a little bit closer on how that same process is being used by the target. And the target, again, is this information over here. The name of the city on the map is part of the target animation. So too is the changing of the code, and the function that runs this also runs the dot. So there's one function that opens up the dot and reveals the text in the location of the city that we're linking on. So in the next movie we'll take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and do a reset. So revert to the original settings, and we'll start new again in the next movie.